Weird science
is the revolution.
Outsiders number 3, written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, with art by Robert Carey, Valentina Tadeo, and Tom Napolitano. It's issue 3 of our Outsiders run that wants to be planetary so very bad, but the problem is, with the stories that we're getting, the little one-shots that are very Warren Ellis about it, it still doesn't know what it wants to be, because it calls itself the Outsiders. It wants to be planetary, but in the long run, it doesn't feel like either of those things. It just feels like a big old misstep from the beginning, because even this issue, number 3, we have such a forced introduction that we have to put Batman in here, because I'm afraid that DC, they realize that we need to do something to get this book selling, so we better force Batman in, and that's the only thing I can see going on here, because before you had, okay, let's put together the team, let's have a carrier that, is a bleed carrier that can go through all the different multiverse. All right, we did that. We'll put it together, very planetary, very authority. Issue number 2. Well, we're going to fight the challenges of the unknown and a sea monster. Okay, it's kind of weird. Issue number 3, we're going to go into the collective unconscious of the multiversal Batman, to the place they go when every Batman in the multiverse is dreaming, so they get together and talk about justice. But not only that, boys and girls, we have to throw back another Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly character from Tales from the Dark Multiverse Death Metal. Not Death Metal, I'm sorry, just regular Dark Knights Metal, where you have Duke Thomas is the final night. And because he is a Batman of the Dark Multiverse, and he has seen what happens when Batman do stuff in the multiverse, whether it's dark or not, he's going to go into the collective unconscious of the Batman, the narrative singularity here, and he's going to kill every Batman he can, because this is how you have to save the multiverse. You got to kill the Batman, even though he's a Batman. He's got to save Luke. He's got to save Luke Fox, because even though he's not technically a Batman, he still wears the sigil, wears the cowl, and one day he could become a Batman, and we can't have that for him or Kate Kane, because on top of having, Batman in the collective unconscious, you also have the Batwoman of the multiverse who are all hanging out there, even a goldfish Kate Kane. Why wouldn't you have that? What has the Outsiders become? The thing is, I can't even answer the idea where it's become nonsense, become garbage, because I don't know what it was supposed to be before this.
Well, that's the problem. And you just explained things, and I think people's heads are spinning. You explained it well. I'll give you props. I don't often give you props, Eric, but I'll give you props because it's really hard to try to explain this book, and that's the problem. And I understand that Lansing and Kelly are trying to make it a planetary book. It's very obvious. They even announced it that way, but they aren't Warren Ellis, and they don't have to be. But what they need to do is maybe set some things up. Here, my big play of this is, and we talked about all 3 issues now, and when it first came out, the second issue especially, where I said, oh my God, are we going to do this one-shot deal? And you said, well, that's a planetary thing, and it is. If you're not aware, Planetary did a lot of one-shots. It was homaging big stories, and my big play of this, though, if I was the editor, but I think they're in cahoots with this, is if I'm just me, and they came and said, well, what's going on? Do you like this book? And I'd say to them, I don't know why you think that just the idea of continuous one-shot, that's not what made Planetary great. It wasn't just like, it almost feels like they think that that's the only thing.
Writing.
It was the writing. You can't just think to yourself, oh, we'll throw any schmuck, and because we'll say it's planetary and tell one-shots that it's going to be good. So in that, you don't have a Warren Ellis. It's a shame they don't. They have Lansing and Kelly, not as good. I mean, that might be an understatement. So instead of one-shot, fine, but wait until issue, if you get there, 7, 8, 9. Maybe have a whole tray of one-shots, like, but you have to set up the team first. Yeah, something first.
But you're too scared to be planetary, so you call yourself the Outsider. So you're doing something different. At least be different enough where people who don't know planetary can get on this and maybe follow along and say, you know what, maybe this is a book worth reading because it has Luke Fox and Kate Kane in it.
And playing devil's advocate, they could say, well, that's why we call it the Outsiders, because not many people know planet. But no. If they don't know planetary, then they don't really even know what you're doing here. They're not going to get it. And you haven't introduced things and Lansing and Kelly, because they're trying to put it through the vein of Warren Ellis. They're not doing a proper setup, because Warren Ellis, he's a great writer. People, whatever is going on, but he's a great, who can set things up even when you don't even realize it. Like, you'll go through stories like this and realize, oh my God, I got that, and that. Grant Morrison does it at points too, but here, Lansing and Kelly don't. They're they're trying to be fancy, but they're surface level writers, and it's not working. Now, in the overall scheme of why did anybody think that they're the next Warren Ellis? Because they're also doing the Thunderbolts.
No.
That Warren Ellis did. They're doing that at Marvel, and they're doing the same awful things. What they end up doing, and I said on my review for Thunderbolts, and I'll say it here again, they end up grabbing things that they might think are cool, but they have the knack to grab the most bullcrap things that nobody likes. They seem to not realize dark multiverse.
In 2024, you tell me that people don't constantly want to hear the term dark multiverse ever again?
Yeah, dark multiverse. That is like a trigger. That sends a lot of DC readers into PTSD. Oh my God, I'm on the fetal position pissing my pants. I don't want that anymore.
Like the thing is, maybe it's not as bad as the Batman Who Laughs. But maybe
that's what I was going to say. That's the only thing that they pull back from, because I'm surprised that they don't even have that.
Well, they have versions.
And so you have an Outsiders book. That's a planetary book that has authority and even Stormwatch, all that wrapped into one. We don't know what's going on in the gist of the story itself. Why are we getting Batman this quick?
Nonstop Batman all over.
And what it does then, it just takes over the deal. Batman being an issue, it's obviously going to be and it is all about Batman of this whole collective consciousness. But what does that do to teach people what the bleed is or what that carrier is?
That's the thing is you have all this stuff going on which feels important to the overall outsider experience for what they're trying to do outside of normal superheroics or vigilante type stuff. But when it all comes down to it, it's the idea of the Batman who dream about the bats and the Barbados connection, everything like that. The thing that the hyperdimensional that gets inside you and makes you become this whole thing. And by the end, it's all about, hey, when Kate Kane leaves this whole place, she's having the dreams about the bats, and we have to worry about that because that makes you on the path to become obsessed with the Batman and become like, everybody else in the multiverse who are Batman. And I'm like, are we actually going to explore things with Kate Kane, or are we just going to go back to episodic adventures each issue that don't matter from issue to issue? Is this going to be a through line that matters, but what are you doing in the long run? Why do we have to have a Batman issue that's focused on this with Luke Fox and Kate Kane if it's not going to matter in the long run like everything else we've done so far?
You do have like these little nuggets of Kate, but also I want to see more of Luke. I mean, they're in this collective conscious. Luke and all this is kind of funded a lot by Bruce Wayne Batman's money that Lucius has.
That's daddy money. The fourth man.
People love Kate. I love Kate. I love Luke. But does everybody know them anymore? Like you kind of have relegated them to like not being in a lot of stuff.
They're backup status at this point.
Yeah. So are there a lot of readers who actually like, finally, I can learn about these characters and I want to see how cool they are. And you just get hit by nonsense. And then me and you like Duke, but it's the final you're getting the worst of everything.
The tales of the dark multiverse stories that were just like, hey, this happened in a weird world, but even it was the last one, I think, of the Tales of the Dark Multiverse series, but it didn't make sense within the rules of how the dark multiverse should work, so it doesn't even matter. It's just a grown-up, Duke Thomas who has past remembering powers instead of lighter dark powers, who dresses up like Batman and is going to go off and like did stuff with the Tempest Fuginaut, but for some reason now he's in the collective unconscious of Batman and outside of the dark multiverse, which shouldn't be a thing anymore, and it doesn't make sense. The only reason it's here is because it's a weird Batman character that Jackson Lancey and Colin Kelly came up with for that story that they added here just because.
Yeah, and I get it. You want to throw your own characters in, but it's kind of not really fully, but it is, and then you're bringing up something from years and years ago that is kind of pushed away. That's done. That stuff is over. And it feels like they are already grabbing for the life preserver in 3 issues, which you would imagine that's what's happening.
Oh, yeah. If you're throwing Batman in this early, you are grasping for straws at this point. You need someone to save your book.
And the weird play of it is that usually that sort of thing, like you're usually 3 issues out. If something's being written out, it'll come in. But there also is that idea that when they first came up with this idea, the initial first issue didn't get a lot of, pre-orders, didn't get a lot of sales. So they're already like, oh my God. Or I'd hate to say that somebody at DC, even before the thing is like, oh, this isn't going to sell, so we better, because then why is it happening? And that's the big thing. At the end of this issue, and the 3, now in total, I don't know why this book exists. I don't know why they're doing this. And it feels like a book. You said Warren Ellis. If he came back, it'd be better, but you'd have that name. Lansing and Kelly aren't a name to put them on something this obscure. Like if you had this as a Black Label Tom King book, it would probably sell because people like that sort of thing. Probably be 12 issues. Yeah. Lansing and Kelly don't have that deal, and you're throwing them on something that is such a niche thing, but isn't even the thing that's niche. You end up, it's outsiders, but it's planetary, but it's authority.
It doesn't know what it is. It's just going to confuse people.
I don't know what it is, and it's confusing me. And so by the end, when are we going to get to something? And if you did end up talking to Lansing and Kelly, I'm guessing they would say, like you said to me even, oh, this is what planetary does, but you might want to change that up. Sometimes you call an audible at the line. You call a play, and you see that they have jammed the middle. You don't run up the middle.
And maybe this is the audible with the things that we're doing with Kate Kane and the idea of what she could become, even the stuff at the final night, Duke Thomas.
That could be
maybe
cool.
This is the audible that could be actually take us to a more a series-driven kind of like narrative instead of just one shot after one shot of like, here's an adventure, here's an adventure, here's an adventure.
And if you think about what this book could be, I mean, going forward with Amanda Waller causing all that problems, the multiverse, the Brainiac stuff, you could see, like, you could easily come up with an idea of what it could become and become important. But I don't know. You're doing such little to it that I don't think it's going to last that long anyway.
Especially with, like, weird teams that we have going on right now outside of the Outsiders with this new Stormwatch and the Vigil. A trifecta of war.
I'm going to ask you here right now. Do you think people know a ton about this new, or even the Carrier, or the Bleed, or the...
That's Wildstorm, baby.
Do you think they know about Batman?
Yes, I think they know the Batman.
So why are we spending more time explaining Batman in this than we're doing all the nonsense that's the basis of the book? You're really doing some weird stuff.
But they're doing character work with Kate Kane, but nobody has any idea who the drummer is.
Yeah, and the character work with Kate Kane, it's still not enough.
No, I say that. Like, I say they're doing this. This is still me speculating they're going to do anything. But I'm telling you, I just want to know, like, you going to do stuff with the drummer, or is this going to be this enigmatic woman who does stuff to keep a story going at certain points? I don't know. My favorite female drummer is Karen Carpenter. That's good.
You didn't know that, right?
You looked that up, huh?
I like Tommy Lee, not because of but because that cage he did was flipped around and did the drums upside down. Pretty cool, Eric. Pretty cool stuff. But this isn't that cool. What would you give it?
I was going to say you 5.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. And the big play of it is that it's just not good. The art's okay, but it doesn't elevate anything. And it's just more of a confusing deal.
And the art's pretty much okay when you're in the foreground. You get anything past that into the background area, it loses all detail and focus.
Yeah,
and
just like the series. Like, the writing can't keep a focus. Why do you expect the art to? It's, like, no backgrounds, just like the character work. See, it all works out. It
does.
You want to hear the weirdest thing?
Art imitates storytelling.
This week, I ended up doing their Thunderbolts and talking kind of the same thing. It really mimics the whole. And I lost my voice doing it, and now it's back again. They take my voice away. They do. They take my breath away, these guys. But hopefully it can turn around. I guess it could. But to do it, they have to really not even call an audible. They have to go in the halftime and reinvent the game plan.
I'm saying, I don't think there's an audience that cares enough. There's not enough marketing that DC can pull out to make people start reading this book out of nowhere. Like, what
how
do
could
you do
you
to make this get a reading, like following it out of nowhere at this point?
Well, Eric, you had it didn't work. Well, maybe that.
No, there's no way.
Nobody's reading this. We hate to speculate on a lot of things, but there can't be. It's just nothing. So
DC barely marketed this book. I'm telling you, there's no way that it's doing anything because DC doesn't even have faith in it.
It is funny because right before it came out, that's when they everybody, let's hit them with the 11th hour. Hey, it's planetary. Like, that's going to do it? Like, really? Really? Planetary? Oh, well, but just to let everybody know, me and Eric are going to be doing more of these kind of smaller things together. Usually when we get together, things are big, Eric, big and large and swollen. But we're going to do these smaller things. But if you do want to hear us talk about it with more, detail and go into a little deeper, either check out our regular podcast, our DC Comics podcast that comes out every Sunday night, or like this book this week, the Outsiders book, was on our Patreon Spotlight, an exclusive deal, and you can check those out at patreon.com/weirdscience. That'll be all in the show notes as well. Check that out in the description. But thanks for all of that, and we'll talk to you all later.
Weird Science
is the revolution.